I had to do it so quick.
I'm
I
sorry.
had
I'm
I
sorry.
I
I
did it
had
as quick.
to.
I had to do it as quick as I could.
Yeah. Oh man, oh man. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Celtics Talk Weekly um, post game show. I am your host, Rob Tan. Joined with me are our two co-hosts, Nick Franco and Seamus Zarlingo. Guys, the Celtics tonight. They were shorthanded, and the team they played, well, they were also shorthanded. And they came up short on the road in Orlando on the eve of Christmas Eve, 108 to 104. Obviously, guys, the Celtics and the Magic kind of played in a dog fest of a game. Very slow pace, very low scoring, very defensive heavy. A lot of turnovers, a lot to talk about, guys. Obviously, no Jason Tatum tonight for the Celtics. He was questionable into the second quarter before getting ruled out after halftime due to an illness. We don't know what the illness was. It was deemed not COVID related. That's all we got. Guys, you know the drill here. Our initial thoughts, reactions, takeaways on tonight's loss.
Go ahead, Franco. You're going to want to take this
Bah
one over. You were hot
humbug.
after the game.
That was one of I've watched so many Celtics games. Yeah. Yeah. No, bah humbug. I'm the Scrooge tonight. The Celtics should have
Doesn't even know what
came
to
away
say.
with a win tonight. You're facing a team that's extremely short-handed with the Orlando Magic, down Boncaro and Wagner, and actually both Wagners. They were struggling to actually off the jump. They had a very good start. They were lighting up the scoreboard. I thought it was just up to someone else to step in to help out Jaylen Brown tonight. He showed that he can be a perennial superstar on a team and filled in for Jason Tatum, who was called out 10 minutes before the game, and I would like to hear the interview of that once that comes out. But I think tonight they just were facing a team who wanted it more. Orlando Magic, they're a tough team, and it was a real testament to their depth that they have on their roster tonight. They had a lot of good performances all around, and you had a team that was legitimately grabbing you by the throat, and the Celtics waited too long to respond to it in the third quarter and fourth quarter.
My goodness. My goodness. Tonight's game, Franco, bah humbug is the correct term to use for this because when you have a 15-point lead at halftime on an Orlando Magic team that looks like, they're struggling to create points a little bit out here. Yes, they're playing hard. Both teams are really playing physical, and you can see why the Orlando Magic, they're not necessarily struggling too hard without Franz Wagner and Paulo Banchero, and now without Mo Wagner for the season. We mentioned him last post game. Unfortunate injury on Saturday for Mo Wagner that put him out for the season. But without those three players, it was very clear the Orlando Magic couldn't create points at the same level the Celtics could at the beginning of this game. And it looked like, yes, the Orlando Magic, they're going to play physical, they're going to play tough, they're not going to go away. But the Celtics, they have more than enough talent without Jason Tatum in this game to go out and finish a nice solid road win before coming back home for Christmas Day against the Philadelphia 76ers. And you see on the bottom of the screen right now, that was not the case. In the second half, the Orlando Magic outscored the Boston Celtics by 19 points. They're being down 15 at halftime. And the Boston Celtics, they're the team that looks like, oh my goodness, we're missing Jason Tatum. We're shorthanded. Whatever will we do? And yes, Tatum is a huge focal point of this team. 43 points on Saturday, triple double, monstrous performance from Tatum. But we see the performance Jaylen Brown had on the top of the screen tonight. 35 points for JB and a super efficient shooting night for Jaylen Brown. He really had it going early. But the Celtics in the second half looked like the flustered team. Orlando completely flustered the Celtics in the second half, attacked them from all different angles, whether it was defensively, offensively. Orlando kept penetrating the paint, kept finding wide open threes. And the Orlando Magic were the team who had more energy, more fight in the second half in this game. And I don't want to ring the alarm bells because it's only December 23rd for the Celtics. And we all know the Celtics, the real portion of the season is going to come later down in February, March, April into May. Of course, if the Celtics make it that far, which we of course expect them to do, that's the real portion of the season. But right now, it feels as if the Celtics, against some of these younger, fast-paced, physical teams, such as Chicago, such as Orlando, they're not really bringing it the way they should. The Celtics are not bringing it the way they should, and that's ultimately what creates these results, because we all know the Boston Celtics, they're beyond better than this Orlando Magic team right now for who they are and what the Magic are without Boncaro and without Franz Wagner. They're beyond the Chicago Bulls right now, who are down in the play-in portion of the standings. Yet the Celtics, they dropped 2 out of the last 3 games in the fashion where they could have had 3 straight wins here. They could have been putting up consistent wins going into Christmas. And that's just not what's happening right now with the Celtics team.
Where do I start? So I think it was so weird because they came out and they played such an amazing first half. And this tonight showed me, especially on the offensive side of the ball, just how important Jason Tatum is to this team and just how important he is within the offense. He is the engine that makes this unit run. I noticed that very clearly in that third quarter and late down the stretch in the fourth. I thought defensively we played a very, very sound game tonight, as did kind of both teams. Like I said, it was a dog fest. But guys, I do want to take a look as we jump into it here, the lead tracker for tonight, because again, it was all green in that first half, guys. It was the Celtics here led by as many as 15 points, was their largest lead up until just at the end of that third quarter there, where the Magic took the lead by 4 points going into that fourth quarter. And then it was just all blue from there. The Celtics were kind of unable to string together the necessary stops they needed, eventually falling short, guys. Now, this is the exact opposite of the lead tracker you want to see. I mean, all green through 2.5, and then just a complete fall off of a blue.
Yeah, it was something that had to be in the second half. The team seemed a little bit less energetic coming out, and it seemed like they had full control of the game. It seemed like the median for this game was the score was Celtics 10, and that's what the lead they were going to withhold. And it didn't seem like they were trying to grow that lead any further. And like I said, I think if Jaylen Brown had a monstrous performance tonight, but the players around him, all it took was one other person to step up, and we didn't see the likes of the bench as much as we would like to, stepping up and being able to fill in for those rotational minutes. I think what really killed the Celtics was when the starters would come out of off the court, and we weren't able to come up with points from Hauser and Pritchard. And I just think that if we are going to be matched up against teams like this, and we're going to see much more of these younger teams as time goes forward, we're going to see a lot more of the Orlando Magic. We're going to see a lot more of the Indiana Pacers as playoffs come around, because we're not going to really see the teams that we're used to or accustomed to, which are the Philadelphia 76ers, the Milwaukee Bucks, even though they've been playing a little bit more consistent recently. But these younger teams are reaching that point where the Celtics were about 3 or 4 years ago, when their young players are starting to reach those prime years, and they're starting to understand how to match up against the Celtics and not really have that fear of playing the Celtics.
Well, that's what me and Seamus talked about that literally just last post-game show, was how the league is kind of caught up to Boston. And I just want to throw out a quick stat that supports that here. The Celtics are now 6-4 in December. That is, I don't know where that ranks within the league. I would guess right around the middle of the pack. They are shooting 44.2% from the floor this month. That ranks 25th in the NBA. They are now shooting 33.5% from behind the arc. That is good for 23rd in the NBA. Obviously, those stats via Sean Grandy. Shout out to Sean Grandy on Twitter or X. Seamus, I mean, the Celtics here, I get rough stretches happen, and I'm not pressing the panic button, but it feels like the once dominant core that we're seeing is starting to maybe, just maybe, reach the median. And, the rest of the field might have caught up to these guys.
Yeah, I don't want to say that's entirely happened from the standpoint of the Celtics are still the best team in the NBA, but those shooting numbers certainly don't indicate anything good right
Right.
now when you're ranking in the bottom 10 for field goal percentage and three-point percentage, because that's not only missed shots. Oh, we're just missing shots in the month of December. But what if we miss shots in April? What if we miss shots in March? That's going to be a real big issue, and it's really about how we're creating those shots and how we're playing offensively overall. Because right now, I think the Celtics are really just going through the motions overall on this team. You look at this game tonight, it felt like the Magic wanted this game. And it felt like the Celtics, on the other hand, we had Jaylen Brown out there just pushing the button the whole time. But it felt like the rest of the Celtics team was just kind of out there. And yes, we had a couple of nice performances from guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday, and we'll get into that later tonight. But overall, it just feels like the rest of the Celtics are going through the motions of playing basketball instead of playing as a complete unit. We said against the Washington Wizards, the Celtics, they look like a unit, whereas the Wizards look like a collection of guys. Yet now against these better teams like the Bulls, like the Magic, the Celtics are, yes, going back towards the median of looking less like a unit and more like a collection of guys like we saw from the Washington Wizards. Now it's not that dire, and we're not the 3-20 Washington Wizards by any means, don't get me wrong, but the Celtics in December so far, they just haven't been crisp. They haven't been on point. And we've seen games like the Chicago game where we expect that from them almost every single night. 25-point win. They should really breeze past some of their opponents. Yet we cannot get that consistently out of this team this year. And we're still 22-7. So there's not a ton to be concerned about from that standpoint, considering the Celtics are still up in the standings. They're still in a battle for the number one seed, and they're going to be in a battle for the number one seed for the rest of the season. But you cannot go 6-4 in your last 10 games and continuously play at nearly a 500 level if you really expect to be there at the end of the season. The Celtics have all the talent. We saw this team last year do what they did, dominate the rest of the league. And it feels like we're almost waiting to see that happen this year when we're almost to Christmas and it's been up and down, like some of the players on the roster this year. It's been like that with the entire team.
I'm confused here. Because this was supposed to be a team in a year in which we saw progression from this unit. This was supposed to be a better Celtics team. I understand that it's the same core, but there should be no reason for regression. All of our best players are getting better. Why haven't we seen that? I mean, the Celtics here are closer to, and again, we're really nitpicking here, but again, this is worth noting. They are closer to the third seed than they are to the first seed for the first time in over 2 years, which, for again, just wild stat. But I mean, I'm confused. Why is it that it? I mean, to me, again, we're 29 games in. There's been a clear step back. This team is not super close. They're not super far, but they're not super close to being at the level in which they were last year. And I think that's pretty apparent. Why is that?
I'll say there's three reasons for this in my mind. Number one, I think there's more of a target on the Celtics back this year, whereas last year they were a new team. People understood how good of a team the Celtics were. Yet since winning the championship, it does add that extra nuance to a team where they go, where the rest of the opponents go, yep, that's the team when they come into our house, like we did in Orlando tonight, or we go into their house, go into the TD Garden. We want to go and knock them off. It's almost like the Warriors back in their day, where it felt like every single game against the Warriors, no matter what level of team they were facing, that was the biggest game of the season for that team. And that's what it's starting to feel like for some of these other teams with the Boston Celtics. And you can even hear it if you ever watch the away broadcast. That's how the away broadcasters treat the Boston Celtics. They go, this is a different unit. This is a different team. This is a different animal coming into our house or going into their house tonight. And this is a big game. So there's that, number one. Number two, I think we've seen more inconsistency in personnel this year than we did last year. And maybe there's some more numbers to back this up, but Kristaps Porzingis was out the first 17 games of the season. I believe tonight was only his 10th game of the year. And even with that being said, he is sitting on back-to-back nights, so he's not around every single night. Al Horford is not around every single night. Both of those guys did play tonight. Jason Tatum is randomly missing games all of a sudden that we don't necessarily expect him to miss. He's usually a very durable player. Now, tonight, did he have an illness? Was it precautionary? What was going on there? We don't really know. He was ruled out 10 minutes before tip. Makes me think that maybe he had a little bit of a stomach bug, maybe he had some sinus congestion. Who even knows? Jason Tatum just sat out. And of course, they want to see him play on Christmas. The NBA and their broadcasters want to see Jason Tatum play against Joel Embiid on Christmas. So they want those guys healthy. Maybe there's some of that precautionary stuff within.
Emphasis on Joel Embiid. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Because the Celtics and the Sixers, they didn't put him on the prime time slot. You could say the prime time slot's the later slot, the 7 p.m. slot, the 6 p.m. slot. But they did put him in that mid-afternoon, which you could consider prime time on Christmas because everybody's at the Christmas dinner table together with their family. Well, their basketball game's on. Oh, who's it? Oh, Celtics, Sixers. They want Tatum and Embiid healthy for those games. But Tatum, he has missed a couple of games here in December where we typically expect him to play every game, and we become accustomed to Jason Tatum playing almost every single game. And when he misses a night, we're almost looking around going, "Uh-oh, what's going to happen? What?" But that really goes on with goes in with the overall point of the Celtics haven't quite had the consistency in personnel, I feel like, this year as they did last year at this time. And I know they missed Jaylen Brown around this time last year, but it felt like when Jaylen Brown came back from his injury, he was just playing at another level. And furthermore from that, it didn't feel like guys were going in and out of the lineup as much as they are right now. And of course, you get in to the fact the Celtics, this is the third reason they won the championship last year. And we thought coming into the season, oh, yeah, there's more motivation for Jaylen Brown. There's more motivation for Jason Tatum. There's more motivation for guys like Peyton Pritchard, Drew Holiday, Derek White. Some of them being a little bit disrespected in terms of the historical conversation of championship teams. Oh, the Celtics, yeah, they had an easy road. Ah, they had a super team. Ah, blah, 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 blah. Well, the Olympics happen, and that, of course, adds another element to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum because Jaylen Brown isn't at the Olympics and Jason Tatum's sitting on the bench at the Olympics. And we thought, on top of that, with the championship disrespect, this team was going to come in with more motivation. Seemed like that early on in the preseason and against the Knicks, but as we've gone along into the season, into November, into December, these aren't necessarily the dog days of the NBA, but we are almost 30
close.
games in.
We're
Right.
close.
We are almost 30 games in right now. And it does feel like this team, there was this peak, there was this mountain of hype behind them where they won the championship, were disrespected at the Olympics, were disrespected over the offseason, we're coming into the season, we're blowing everybody out, here we go. And now they've sort of achieved that in the early portion of the season to some sense. Now it's almost like we're waiting for the next mountain peak of, oh, we're going into the playoffs. We're going running down the hill into All-Star break or outside of All-Star break, the last 25 games of the season. It feels like the Celtics are almost waiting for that moment now and waiting for the playoffs to come around. And I don't want to say that's necessarily exactly what they're doing, but mentally, these games in December are not as big as coming back into the season, going and playing in the playoffs, playing in the finals, playing in the Olympics. It's not as much of a hype show right now as it was during those portions of the year. And I almost feel like that could be affecting the Celtics team in a sense where they go, yep, we've been through this a million times already. We're playing in November. We're playing in December. The NBA Cup isn't here anymore. We're playing regular season games. And it does really seem like the Celtics are just going through the motions right now. They're just going
It
through the
does.
motions on court.
Yeah.
Specifically on the offensive end of the floor where the team just does not seem as collective as they were last season in doing all the things in which they needed to do at a crisp level, even defensively too. I thought some of the rotations tonight, yes, we held the Magic to 108, and I feel like this was a defensive battle between these two teams, and it was a physical battle. Don't get me wrong, the Celtics brought their physicality, but it felt like in the second half, just felt like the Orlando Magic were the quicker team, the more energetic team, and I felt like that came out really defensively from the Magic's perspective, flustering the Celtics, and the Celtics really in the second half they struggled to create stops against the Orlando Magic because you think the Orlando Magic had what 50, how many points did they have at halftime?
43.
40, it's 43. We had 58 at halftime, the Celtics did. Orlando had 43. They end up with 108. So in the second half you can just see there That's a pretty big margin in which they fill up in the second half compared to the first half when it feels like the Celtics are really getting after it versus the second half. Yeah, the Orlando Magic, they hang what, 65 on the Celtics, I want to say. Yeah, 65 after 43. So that's a 22-point discrepancy between those two halves. And the Celtics, it doesn't look all that great right now, but that being said, it's December. We still have a lot of faith in this team. There's still a lot of opportunity in front of them, and we're not completely ringing the alarm bells here, but we are just showing a little bit of concern because we're not used to this. Oh, we lose to the Bulls. Oh, we blew out the Bulls. Here we go. Here come the Celtics. And then tonight happens. That's not what we're used to with the Celtics team whatsoever.
Especially with this roster, I think that we've seen something. We've seen a lot more independent performances from the Celtics roster and the Celtics lineup. People will decide to have their own nights, and it doesn't seem like the killer whale. What's the word? Similarity that Joe Mazzulla likes to compare the Celtics to is a pot of killer whales. They're acting like great white sharks, and if there's another one in their territory, they back off.
They're acting like some wimpy deers. Is what they're acting like. I'm sorry, they're acting like some wimpy deers, some babies. Yeah. I mean, come on.
Yeah, they're just not seeing the court as well as they used to. And I mean, we think that the Celtics don't care about the NBA Cup, and they should be trying to win that since they didn't win it last year. And being able to put your shoulders back is not something that the Celtics should be doing right now.
I mean, for me, something I don't want to do this season that I think Celtics Nation, Celtics media fell victim to in years past. Two things. One, overreact to losses. However, I think there is this stigma going around right now within the Celtics sphere that every time they lose a game, it's like, so what? We won the championship. And so what? Oh, we had a 15-point lead. So what? I'm not moved, right? And well, yes, you might be right, but there are some things that Boston is doing right now that could develop as habits that you have to look at and you have to say, okay, this needs to be addressed. Because if come April, right, they're not addressed, you might sit there and think to yourself, you might see it pop up in a game 4 where they get complacent. Because I will say right now, something we did not see through 82 games last year, right? Maybe a couple times when they blew a couple of leads because, another team got hot, right? We did not see this team get complacent, relaxed, and just going through the motions. That was never a topic, a conversation about this team. It is this year. To me, that's a little worrisome because, again, right, we understand how good the Celtics team is. I also understand how tough it is to go back-to-back in this league. And that's something the Celtics need to address. It's something they need to lock in on. Because guess what, guys? I'm sorry, but you can't just look at some of these losses, right, and just go, you know what? Yeah, what about June? How about that historic playoff run? It's like, yeah, sure, right? It was awesome. It was great. But that doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't. It does not matter anymore. And these guys in the locker room need to know that. I think we need to know that. So it's very important. You cannot go about this season for the remainder of the year thinking, but June 17th, what happened then? 2024. Because you're going to go down a rabbit hole.
See, and we'll bring this point up again. We brought it up last post game, but we'll bring it up once again. Last year's road to the finals for the Celtics did not include Jimmy Butler. In the second round, Donovan Mitchell went out. In the third round, Tyrese Halliburton went out of the series. Didn't even play in the series. We faced the Dallas Mavericks, who were a number 5 seed in the NBA Finals. Look at the Denver Nuggets in 2023. Who did they have to face? 8 seed, 4 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed. And on the other side of the bracket, remember, the Boston Celtics were the number 2 seed. Couple of struggles with the Atlanta Hawks in the first round. Trae Young hits that game winner at the Garden. We have to play an extra game. In Atlanta, we have to fly all the way down to Georgia to play an extra game.
And what was one of that team's biggest problem was complacency. all throughout the year. Complacency.
And I will say the team right now is much different than that team, but at the same time,
much different.
Same players there. I mean, I won't pick on, Tatum, Brown, Derek White a ton because, of course, we still have Drew Holiday and Porzingis, and this team is very different, very constructed, extremely different. But that second round against the Sixers, we lose game 1 at home against the Philadelphia 76ers. James Harden hits a huge shot. Game 6, we're down by a ton. Tatum saves the Celtics in game 6 in Philadelphia from ultimate embarrassment. Jason Tatum, I mean, sometimes you look back at the memories of Jason Tatum. I know he didn't play tonight, but my goodness, how many times has he saved this Celtics team? Game 6 in Milwaukee, game 6 in Philadelphia. Those are just some of the greatest Celtics moments that people will one day look back on and go, man, we were really watching something special with Jason Tatum right there. But regardless, game 6 saves us. Game 7, we come out, whoop the Philadelphia 76ers at the Garden. And then against the Miami Heat, it's a 2-8 series. That was the ultimate path towards the finals for the Celtics. That's what kind of annoys me about the rhetoric right now of, oh, yeah, we won the championship. Oh, it'll be fine. And, oh, yeah, some of these things we're not exactly hitting on the defensive side of the floor, the offensive side of the floor, but we'll get there later on in the season. No, we need to be developing those good habits right now and get back to where we were last year, because the year before in 2023, the Celtics should have made the finals in 2023, and we should be talking about 4 straight finals appearances right now, 22, 23, 24, now 25. Instead, in 23, you get complacent against the Atlanta Hawks. Trae Young hits a game winner. That goes to a game 6. We go down, of course, to Atlanta, win that game. Philadelphia, they win a couple of games at the Garden. That goes to a game 7. We almost lose in game 6 in that series. And then we face the 8 seed Miami Heat, who are, of course, dangerous that year. But the Celtics are beaten by guys like Caleb Martin and Gabe Vincent, who are not even in the conversation of players right now in the NBA. And credit to them, they were able to hit wide open threes. But guess what? They were wide open in that series for a reason. The Celtics were not crisp in that series at all. And they lost the first 2 home games. Look, you have to, no matter what level of team you are, whether you're a 2 seed, 1 seed, whatever it is, you have to respect your opponents and respect the rest of the league, because the championship path is not always going to open up and flourish the way it did for the Celtics last year. And even amidst that championship run for the Celtics, in which they didn't face Jimmy Butler, did not face Donovan Mitchell for half the series, did not face Tyrese Halliburton throughout the Eastern Conference, we still saw games where Jaylen Brown had to hit a game winner or hit a shot to send it into overtime in the corner. We saw in Indiana, Drew Holiday had to come up with a big steal in order to pull out that game. I was at game 4 in Indiana when we made it to the finals, and oh my goodness, it looked like the Celtics for most of that game weren't going to win, and you had this feeling that they were going to come back, and they eventually did. But that's a series in which the Celtics sweep where it could have been 3-1 Indiana the other way. We think about, I believe it was game 4 in Cleveland. Jaylen Brown has to hit a huge shot down the stretch in order to close that one out. The series against the Miami Heat, we lose game 2. Now, the rest of those weren't really that close, but that series should have been a sweep, and it was a 5-game series. So even last year, where we think, oh, that was so easy for the Celtics, they should just breeze through the rest of the East. Well, this year, it's not going to be as easy as a path for number one. Number 2, the Orlando Magic here, I want to point out with their team right now, they're missing their 2 best players. And their bench squad, essentially, Trevelin Queen dominated the Celtics tonight. Cole Anthony was a stinger for the Celtics tonight. We look at Tristan da Silva. He dominated the Celtics tonight, in a sense. Now, for the standards of these players, of course, they didn't go off like Jaylen Brown did tonight or anything like that. But the players on the Orlando Magic, this is their second unit, essentially, coming over and taking first unit responsibilities. Now, some of these guys are in the first unit, but they're missing their 2 best players. They're missing Mo Wagner for the rest of the season. And this is a type of game where they look at into the future when they face the Celtics. We're going to face them twice more this year. The Orlando Magic once in January, another time down in Orlando in April. That'll be an interesting matchup, because you never know. Wagner and Boncaro could be back, and that could be for seeding purposes. Who knows? But this is a team where they gain confidence from playing a game like this later on in the season, where they go, look, we've already done this against the Boston Celtics. We already know what they're going to bring to our floor, and we already know what we're going to bring to them. And in a playoff series where The margins matter. We saw in 2023, the margins matter. Even though we were the better team than the Hawks, than the Sixers, than the Heat, we played extra games in all those series. We lost one of those series and could have lost another one. And that's where this 2025 Celtics team, as we're going into 2025 now, they do not want to find themselves in the same position as that 2023 team where they should be the best team in the Eastern Conference. They could be the best team in the league. They could make the finals and even win the finals. But because of the little margins they're not hitting at, they're not quite at that level. Last year we blew past those margins because that team was motivated. Holiday, Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Peyton Pritchard, Derek White. They were all motivated. Sam Hauser, of course, too. New role, second year in his new role, even enhanced role. They were all motivated to go out and capture their first ring. Well, they've captured that first ring. They got to now muster up the motivation and the wherewithal to understand that that first ring came. That was awesome. But you're right, Rob. That moment is over. We're on to the next season. And this could be no different than 2023 when that team just couldn't quite hit at the margins the way that they did, and they fell apart in the end. We do not want to see that happen with this team. And I don't want to sound the alarm bells right now in a random December game, but this isn't a random December game. This is a December game in which they should win against the Orlando Magic without their two best players, regardless of what the Magic have been doing.
Right. We're speaking hypotheticals here. I do want to hop into the player of the game, though. Jaylen Brown. Again, it felt like JB tonight was kind of the only bright spot. I think there's some other names we're going to throw out there later on in the show that deserve to get talked about. But Jaylen Brown, is your SeatGeek player spotlight. Now, guys, before I talk about Jaylen Brown, I do just want to say Christmas is still in just 2 days, guys, and it is not too late to get your hands on some Celtics tickets for the holidays. Guys, use SeatGeek to do so. They are the best ticketing app in the market. Guys, use the link in our top of the description and use code Celtics Weekly at checkout for $20 off your first purchase. Again, guys, there is no better time than the holidays to get into that TD Garden and watch this Celtics team play hopefully some great basketball. But so big shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring the postgame show. Now let's talk about Jaylen Brown tonight. 35 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals, 15 of 29 from the floor. He got to the free throw line a couple times, 4 or 6 from the stripe tonight. You know, in a game that Jaylen Brown needed to give the Celtics some push, he did that. This is a very Jaylen Brown game. Struggled from behind the arc yet again. He was still able to get and put up very productive numbers. 35 points is not nothing, right? It is a very productive game, very high scoring game. Kind of the only guy that was giving us that fight back, giving the Orlando that punch back, Franco. So, you know, it's kind of obvious, I feel like, but what did you like coming out of JB tonight?
JB kind of showed that if Jason Tatum's not on the court, there shouldn't be any problems. And that's something that should be a well-known thing with the Boston Celtics, that their only superstar isn't just Jaylen Brown. I think that if we saw better performances out of the Derek Whites, the Drew Holidays, I'm not saying they had a bad game, but all it took was for one of them to step up alongside Jaylen Brown. This team shouldn't have any issues playing against a Orlando Magic team who, especially when they're injured the way they are, shouldn't need to fall back and be like, oh no, we're missing our best player. The Celtics still have a top tier player on their roster, and that's Jaylen Brown. And tonight he proved that. He was able to muster a heavy load, 29 shots from the field tonight. Not something we've been accustomed to seeing out of Jaylen Brown in a long time. And it's something that we would love to see. The way he's able to attack the rim was something that should have set precedent with the rest of the team. They did a good job of getting down low. He was doing a great job of facilitating for the Celtics tonight, being able to get the ball around. And just something that when he's going to carry the energy for this Boston Celtics team, he needs to be that to others.
Well, you know what's so funny is literally, Seamus, last show we were on here and talking about how when Jaylen Brown comes with that energy, it is reciprocated, and it is a trickle effect down the little, we'll call it the Christmas tree, right? And the lights come on for everybody else, and everyone's clicking. I didn't get that tonight. Where was that? I mean, I was just giving JB his props. He did his job tonight. I was giving everybody their props for following the energy shifter. And then tonight, 2 days later, against a better, quite frankly, the short-handed Orlando Magic, I look at them before, more highly than I look at the Chicago Bulls against a better team on the road. And no one else kind of followed him. Although, Drew Holiday, I'm going to give Drew the pass tonight. You'll see why soon. Drew gets my pass. But why? We were just talking about, we're just giving them their flowers, Seamus. A little foreshadowing there. There we go.
Well, last post game, Rob, you kind of talked about you like some of the 22-point performances out of Jaylen Brown than you do the 40-point performances.
Right.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
And tonight's game really felt like one of those where Jaylen Brown had 35. He had 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 15 of 29. And really one of those was a heave at the end. So he was really 15 of 28. Crazy efficient on the night, shooting-wise, from Jaylen Brown. But we do see on these nights where Jaylen Brown is asked to harbor an enhanced offensive responsibility, right, in scoring and playmaking. When Jason Tatum is out of the lineup, Jaylen Brown maybe isn't as great of a playmaker as Jason Tatum, maybe isn't as great of a primary guy as Jason Tatum. And we know he can score the ball, but in terms of getting everybody else involved into the scheme of what the Celtics are doing offensively in the entire game, when Jaylen Brown is the focal point of the Celtics offense, when there's no Jason Tatum on the floor, when Jason Tatum misses a game, that's when Jaylen Brown can, yes, put up the scoring numbers, but can he get everybody else involved the same way he can as the secondary star on the Celtics? Because on Saturday, almost said Friday, Saturday, we do know our days here on Celtics Talk Weekly, I swear. But on Saturday,
we might not.
We're always sitting here going, is it Tuesday?
Yeah, we might not.
I caught myself that time. It was Saturday. Jason Tatum on Saturday, 43 points. Jaylen Brown, he had 20 points in that game, shot 9 of 20 from the floor, or had 19 points in the game, shot 9 of 20. 8 assists on the night for Jaylen Brown. But what Jaylen Brown was able to do in terms of getting everybody else involved and playing that secondary role next to Jason Tatum, that is when his game is really maximized on this team, and that's when the rest of this team can be maximized. And without Jason Tatum tonight, this is the kind of trickle-down effect that Jason Tatum's absence has on the Celtics, where Jaylen Brown...
I was going to go there.
Right, he needs to step up and be that primary scorer, that primary playmaker. And yes, he can put points up on the board, but in terms of getting everybody else involved, it feels like that secondary guy was almost missing tonight. Yes, Derek White. I thought Derek White handled the ball a lot more tonight than he has the rest of the season. Mm-hmm. Drew Holiday was getting involved as well. Those guys played solidly, but it did feel like the Celtics were almost missing that secondary offensive option around Jaylen Brown tonight. And we have seen Pritchard in the last couple of games. He hasn't quite been 25-point Pritchard. He's kind of taken a little bit of a step back from that aspect. Now, he hasn't been playing terribly, don't get me wrong, but Peyton Pritchard, this is the conversation that me and Justin argued over for 20 minutes. Is Peyton Pritchard 25 every night, or is he really more close to 15 every single night? And right now we're seeing more of the 15-point Pritchard come out, and that can also affect the team as well when you don't have that secondary scorer to really go to throughout the game. That I shouldn't say, like, it's not as if guys didn't step up into that role a little bit tonight, because we saw Derek White, he had 17 tonight. We saw Drew Holiday, he had 16 tonight. And even looking at the box score, Kristaps Porzingis, he somehow ended up with 17, despite he had 14 free throw attempts tonight, which is insane for Kristaps Porzingis, and really working on the interior. Now, he did shoot 3 of 10 and 1 of 5, but those numbers were mostly balanced throughout the game when it really mattered. Throughout the end, the Celtics were trying to shoot from the floor a little bit more to come back in the game. But it's not as if we didn't have guys step up and score tonight from that secondary role, but it did feel more spread out. And it didn't feel like we had that primary secondary player. And Peyton Pritchard, he only had 7 points tonight, 3 of 7 from the floor, 1 of 5 from 3. If you're not getting a lot out of Peyton Pritchard or Sam Hauser, who had 0 points in 16 minutes tonight, the Celtics, they just didn't quite fill up the scoring sheet the way that we're normally accustomed to. When Jason Tatum is in the lineup, giving you an extra 20 plus points, Jaylen Brown is right there playing the secondary role, and everybody else can feed off of those two players. We likely see more than 104 points tonight from the Celtics if Jason Tatum is in the lineup and Jaylen Brown is playing more of that secondary role. But still, Flowers, we're going to talk about Flowers in a second here, but
Right.
Jaylen Brown, in terms of giving out some flowers, 35 points is nothing to sneeze at, especially with that line up there. It's just the conversation is more of Jaylen Brown is maximized when Tatum is out on the floor and he is that secondary guy rather than being the primary guy. We've seen how many times in Jaylen Brown's career has he scored 35 plus points and the team loses? It feels like
No,
he
it
leads.
feels like every time
he
he's
leads the
going
league in
off,
that.
quite frankly. Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to say we're going to get into the flowers real quick right here. But before we get into the flowers, I do want to say something. Kristaps Porzingis, tonight's on you. Really. Because we talk about where's that second score? Pritchard, where were you? White, where were you? Quite frankly, it's not their job to be Tatum's out of the lineup. Okay, you're number 2. When Kristaps Porzingis plays, one of the Jays are out, that guy was supposed to be and is the reason this team is a powerhouse. Tonight, he was pathetic. Kristaps Porzingis was pathetic tonight in the nicest way possible. He was pathetic. He was foul baiting. He was playing soft. He had no touch at the rim. Only, 10 field goal attempts for Kristaps Porzingis tonight, if I'm not mistaken. 10 in a game that Jason Tatum isn't playing in. You get Kristaps Porzingis, this team's Kevin Durant, right? Kevin Durant, you give him 10 looks against an Orlando Magic team that I'm a big Goga fan, right? Maybe not after tonight, but Wendell Carter and Goga manning their paint, and you give Kristaps Porzingis only 10 looks. So game planning, you want to point the finger there. I'm pointing the finger at Kristaps. I'm sorry, guys. Tonight, I'm not looking at Pritchard. I'm not looking at White. Kristaps, you were pathetic tonight. I'm sorry. It was a pathetic Kristaps game. It happens, but it was poor.
Let's add this with Kristaps too tonight. He just entered the conversation for most efficient paint scorer rather, in terms of points per possession in the NBA, because they were talking about on the broadcast, oh, he's finally getting up to that threshold, playing the minimum amount of games, the minimum amount of minutes in order to be considered in that conversation, because he missed the first 17 games. This was his 10th game tonight. And Kristaps Porzingis, he retook, that was a big thing on Twitter this week. Oh, Kristaps Porzingis, he's retaking the most efficient paint scorer title in the NBA, away from Jokic, away from some of these other bigs and players. Well, guess what? Tonight, Kristaps Porzingis around the paint couldn't make anything at all. And it's just one of those situations where we look at it and go, wow, we gave him all this conversation throughout the weekend and throughout the last week, and yet he comes into tonight and just drops a complete egg in the paint. Now, he wasn't 0-4, but in terms of just being spoiled, geez, it was awful in terms of Kristaps Porzingis trying to score around the paint tonight. I completely agree with that.
Yes, in a game in which you needed something else. It was like somebody step up. We need Jaylen Brown. I give him so much credit. He was the only one getting downhill, going to the rim, playing with the ground. It was like Jaylen was like, come on, somebody else come. We'll win. Just someone else come along with me. And no one else was in I'm sorry, but anytime you have that problem with the Celtics, especially right when Jason Tatum is out of the lineup, it has to be Kristaps Porzingis. It is why he is in a Celtic uniform. But let's pivot here. Sorry, that just had to be said. Let's talk about the flowers.
Wait, Franco, you have something to say about this real quick, Kristaps?
Well, it's just because someone was finally putting a elbow into his back. I think that teams just need to play physical against the Boston Celtics, and that's going to be a key way of winning. I think the Celtics have shied away from their roots of being the gritty team that's laying it out on the line. Obviously, we saw a little bit of it at the end, but it was a little too late for it. I mean, if Joe Mazzulla's messages are going to translate over to the court, it's got to be now. I think this is when it matters the most. We have Jason Tatum quoted on saying the NBA League Pass games against against Charlotte, but in this case, it was Orlando, and I only say Orlando in the same sentence as Charlotte just because of the injuries they're facing. It's something that Kristaps Porzingis, especially with Al Horford's age and being our big man, it's something that the Celtics could really feed through, and it all ties back to this team being able to play together and not just as independents.
And I'll say one more thing to add on to Franco's point here. What's so annoying about this Celtics team right now is they're advertised as one of the most physical teams in the NBA with all of their height and all of their size, their entire lineup. You look at everybody can defend almost 1 through 5, it feels like, on any given occasion, any given night. Yet that's not been the actual identity of this team at all this season. At all. And it feels like that could be because of the championship hangover just a little bit. But the second annoying thing here on the Celtics is the way they actually played in the last 3 minutes of this game when they were down 10 points and they were looking at the clock going, uh-oh, we have 3 minutes left. We're down 10. Might as well turn it up now. That's actually the way they should have been playing the entire second half, is the last 3 minutes of the game when they were passing all over the place on offense, finding open threes, defensively, really getting after it with their intensity, being the more physical team within that last 3 minutes. They almost were able to take the lead there in the last 3 minutes if they just came up with another stop and another good offensive possession, yet they couldn't because they dug themselves too big of a hole to start the fourth, which is something we've been seeing a lot lately out of this team. For some reason, when the fourth quarter hits, it feels like the Celtics just pull off the throttle a little bit. And we've seen these 10-0 runs. We've seen these 7-0 runs come from the Magic and the Bulls at the beginning of the fourth quarter. And that's not what the Celtics want to be at all. We want to see them where they were at the end of this game when they realize, oh, we actually need to be the more intense team right now or else we're going to lose. No, they should have that mentality the entire game, not when they're down 10, not when they've dug themselves a hole. So that's getting a little bit annoying with the Celtics team as of right now. We saw it in Cleveland too a couple weeks ago, and that was really the most egregious example of it against an opponent that I believe we're undoubtedly going to play later if we really make it deep into the playoffs, in which we expect them to. Expect the Celtics to, that is.
Last thing, I gotta say, kind of playing off that point is, it's not worrisome, right? Because again, I'm not worried right now, but it's something. I'm gonna bring this back. I think it needs to come back because I haven't highlighting. We're now highlighting stuff again, guys. I'm sorry. But we're going to have to highlight things. Get the marker out because I was highlighting things, checking on things all year last year. And the Celtics intensity is now being highlighted alongside with their interior defense. I highlighted about, I want to say 10 games ago. And honestly, the interior play has been, it's getting a little bit, it's getting a little bit lighter. It's picking up. But again, it's a different conversation. But yes, it's the Celtics intensity. It's getting highlighted officially, guys. We're going to keep checking in on this because it's something that they need to pick up on. I agree, Seamus and Franco. It can't just be 3 minutes left, down 6. It needs to be for the entirety of close games, the entirety of when a team is making comeback, mounting a comeback, playing tough. You need to kind of take their toughness and double it. So I definitely agree. Officially highlighted Celtics intensity, which I hate saying that because the Celtics intensity should never have to be highlighted and checked in on. It should be there every night.
So where's that guy with the green hair?
Yeah. Let's hop into Justin's flowers though. Tonight, I won't lie, I gave out the flowers. Justin is in the middle of a very busy work week right now with the holidays. And the poor guy, the poor guy is just not under the weather, but he's just balls to the wall right now with work. So he wasn't able to give out his flowers. They are Justin's flowers. So I'm handing them out tonight, but they are still from Justin. Tonight, guys, Drew Holiday. This was maybe you guys disagree with me here. I loved what I saw from Drew tonight. Defensively, offensively, he made some big time shots down the stretch. He made some big time steals. He was everywhere on the defensive floor. Tonight, statistically, 16 points, 8 rebounds, 5 stocks, as a true member of that stock exchange. Shot efficiently from the floor, 2 of 5 from behind the arc, 40%. That's not bad. We'll take that. It's not, when you say shoot 5, you'd always like to kind of be at that 3 for 5, not 2 for 5, but again, not bad. 2 of 5, you keep shooting that, you're going to shoot 40%. So guys, again, Drew Holiday tonight, He's the flowers winner. So he was doing the stuff in between the margins, Seamus and Franco. So what did we like on Drew Holiday against Orlando tonight? Or disliked? Maybe you disagree with it. If you disliked it, feel free.
Throw those flowers on the floor.
Yeah, if you disagree with it, you can feel free to burn those flowers. But
I think he had a better performance than Kristaps Porzingis, and he acted more of the center than he did. I think we finally got to see Drew Holiday look comfortable in the paint again, which is a blessing for the Boston Celtics.
He's looked really good.
I mean, at the beginning of the season, throughout the first 20, 30 games, it seemed like his ability to cut down to the paint and be able to make those difficult shots when he's matched up against a larger defender, it didn't seem like it was working for him anymore. It seemed like he was starting to see that that age start to kick in, where it's starting to turn into more of a IQ 3-and-D. I'm out on the wing and I'm only contributing through my skills of IQ. And I think being able to see that from him, being able to get his offensive rebounds, being able to get his rebounds on the defensive end, especially when Kristaps Porzingis isn't performing to the standard that we're expecting him to. I think Kristaps needs to develop more into that stockier, more of a presence down low. And if someone's going to do it, Drew Holiday has no problem doing it. He's always been the Swiss Army knife to this team. When I made the joke about the green-haired guy, Marcus Smart, that's where Drew Holiday steps in. I think that's where we're going to see that type of attitude fill in. And it's not really even the attitude. It's just being able to know when to get ready for the basketball and be able to make those plays when they come up in clutch. And he also made those key 3-pointers when we thought we were going to see a comeback at the end of the game. Obviously, there were a couple of calls that didn't go our way going into the end of the game, but he was one of the players that was creating that momentum in those final 5 minutes. Obviously, we want to see more of that. And something that also stuck out to me is the Celtics only played 8 players while Orlando played 10. I think having fresh legs on the court is something the Celtics really need to become more efficient on, is being able to have those rotations, be able to have your guys ready to go for the third quarter, with having the Sam Howsers and Peyton Pritchard step up and be able to play those minutes. And I think having the Drew Holiday be able to do that type of stuff is going to take him to have some time on the bench. It's going to take those breaks, and I think it's going to come more in spurts than it is going to be consistent from him. But from tonight's performance, it's something that exactly we want to see. And if this was a playoff game, I would be proud of the individual performance. But once again, I always loop back to this. We need more of a team effort, and it needs to. Your individual success doesn't impact how this team is going to win games.
What's put Drew Holiday into the conversation of is he aging alongside Al Horford this year is really his energy, activity, and ability to make shots. All of those aspects eloped into one is what we've really questioned about Drew Holiday this year, because last year it felt like he had more energy, he was a lot more active on the floor, and he was surely hitting a lot more shots out there as well. Tonight, 7 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3. And I know the 2 of 5, yeah, it's whatever. But one of those 3-point shots was a crucial one down the stretch. Now, it could have been even more crucial if the Celtics pulled out a win. But in terms of making that comeback and actually making this game close in the fourth quarter, late in the fourth quarter, Drew Holiday pulled up with confidence. And it was a no-doubter. Once he pulled up, it almost felt like, oh, that's going in. And it swished perfectly. But aside from that, Drew Holiday defensively tonight, 3 steals, 2 blocks. His energy and activity on the defensive end of the floor, I thought was one of his best performances of the entire season, because we've seen Drew Holiday this season. He's one of the players where we think, yeah, the Celtics are going through the motions. He's a player that's gone through a little bit of the motions this season, and we thought, oh yeah, he's 34, 35 years old, Drew Holiday. He's creeping up there in age. maybe his knees, his ankles, his joints, maybe he's inching more towards the level of Al Horford on this team. Those two players, they're not exactly who they were in, say, 2017. We see both of those players this year. We've talked about it in a previous post-game show and even had a video out on it. Everybody go check out that video, by the way, from a month ago. But regardless of the promo there, Drew Holiday is, yeah, on some nights, not always the most efficient Celtic this year. He's just not, either on the defensive end of the floor, offensively, just not really hitting shots at the level we expect him to hit shots at. Yet tonight, he was 7 of 12, and defensively, I thought he was super active. And even we saw right before the half, it felt like there were 3 calls in a row on Drew Holiday where it was like he was moving too fast. They called a travel on him, which I'm always just baffled every time they call it travel in the NBA because it just feels like guys like they always have that extra gather step. How can you actually tell?
What is it? Yeah, what is a travel? What's not a travel?
And then Drew Holiday was playing aggressive defense right before the half. They call it on him. And then there was another one. He kind of let Anthony Black go by him, but then boom, he pokes the ball out. And I'm not sure whether the Celtics got the ball back or not, but that was kind of a big play because that would have been a bucket for the Orlando Magic right before half when it seemed like the Celtics were going to have the ball last, and Drew Holiday made a defensive stop there. So that was a little bit of an example of how active Drew Holiday was in this game and his energy level. And this is the Holiday we're going to need this season, later on in the season specifically, if the Celtics are going to want to go back to back, because we think about how big Drew Holiday was for last year's team and last year's run, came up with one of the more historic plays in Celtics history. Drew Holiday steals the ball in Game 3 against against the Indiana Pacers, and I was loving that because I was going to Game 4, going, if he doesn't do that in Game 3, we're not watching the Celtics go to the finals in Game 4. We got to wait till they go back to Boston to do it. Instead, Drew Holiday comes up with that steal in Game 3. It's historic in that playoff run, and that is what epitomized part of his season last year. Not only that, but hitting huge three-pointers down the stretch like he did tonight. So I thought Drew Holiday, to give the flowers to him, I think that's perfect. I think Justin would completely agree with it, unless, of course, he'd attack us over text of, maybe
He
giving it
will
to Derek
anyways.
White. Derek White was great too, but Drew Holiday, White's been a little bit more consistent than Drew Holiday this year. So when Drew Holiday has that performance, that's really
it was
when
so needed. It
you
was
gotta give
so
it to him.
needed for Drew. If there was one positive to pull out of this game, it was the Drew Holiday game tonight. Because he hasn't won anything this year from a Celtics Talk Weekly award standpoint, right? The poor guy hasn't won a player spotlight. He really has not been talked about, positively much because, quite frankly, there hasn't just been much positive to pull from him. This game and recently within the past 2 weeks, really since those 3 games in 11 days took place, Drew has just been very clearly more active, shots falling, more energetic, better on the defensive end of the floor. So just if there's one positive to pull from this loss tonight, it's the Drew Holiday game, because really he played a very sound game. It's a shame they weren't able to pull out tonight to win, because he was really, really dogging it out there. And you had to give him his flowers tonight because he deserved it. Guys, we're an hour into the show. Actually, officially, that was weird how that worked. That was really weird. I totally planned that. But and we haven't talked about a certain stat, not the 3-point shot, a certain stat. And we need to, because it's a little uncharacteristic of a Joe Mazzulla Celtics. And you guys might know, I see there's a little Seamus smirk coming. You guys might know what I'm going to talk about and bring up, but it's that assist numbers. Guys, the Celtics under Joe Mazzulla have been a very, very phenomenal passing team. They share the ball. You can see it right there on the ticker right now. 13 team assists, 18 team turnovers. I mean, it's very rare for you see the Celtics team to have at least 13 team turnovers. Forget to have more turnovers than assists, guys. A lot of isolation play. Credit to Orlando's defense. Are you poking at Boston tonight? What was it? Or both? Probably both.
Yeah, I think we have to give our credit to Orlando tonight. They did a great job tonight with ruffling the feathers of the Boston Celtics. If there's a way to do it, the Orlando Magic showed the NBA how to do it. And hopefully that's a kick in the butt to the Boston Celtics. I hope this is that type of wake up call game that no team is taking you lightly anymore, nor should they. But no team is now like, oh, we're playing the Boston Celtics. It's going to be an automatic loss tonight. There's ways to beat the Boston Celtics, and one of them is punching them in the throat. It's something that we want to see the Celtics be able to respond to and reciprocate that type of energy. And I think that being able to get those types of assists and being able to get that fluid motion that we're so accustomed to as Celtics fans. What we're used to is when the team is all one player gets hot, it is infectious towards everyone else on the court, and we just haven't seen that as much this year. And I mean, Jaylen Brown was able to get his buckets, and it seemed like everyone else was just finding their own way to score tonight. But we need to see them be able to find those looks and be able to create those opportunities for others. It's something that Derek White would have been able to take advantage of. Kristaps Porzingis or Drew Holiday, someone that we didn't see show up tonight was Peyton Pritchard, which you're lucky to have a player on your bench that can score 20 points in a game and doesn't need to be written into the Joe Mazzulla game plan. You can just put him out there and he'll just be a bucket getter. That's not going to happen every night, and that's not a luxury the Celtics can take for granted. It's being able to rely on your star players to get the ball into each other's hands and being able to kick out. I think they did a much better job tonight of being multi-dimensional and attacking the rim. I think before the first half was over, the Celtics had I'm blanking on the amount of points in the paint they had, but they were able to get to the rim. They were creating those opportunities, and I just think that it's something that teams can game plan to and adjust to. So being able to have those multi ways of scoring, and when people refer to the Boston Celtics, they like to say the Boston Celtics have 5 All-Stars. It doesn't really seem like it this year. It's something that is like just a on paper type of look. Obviously, we know what these players are capable of, and we all know they're capable of being all-star if they were playing to each other's advantages. But it's something that we look at and we see Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. They don't feel like they're getting the respect they deserve, or the Drew Holidays not getting the type of respect they deserve. So they're trying to do it on their own, and they don't realize that was what won them the championship entirely last season is their team chemistry.
But I will hop in here and say, Franco, this was a standalone scenario. Like this is just an outlier game, right? Where you're not going to see this many more. Really, you probably not see this again all year. So I don't really think it's like the Celtics are trying to isolate everybody and they're playing hero ball. They were tonight, like they just couldn't. I don't know if it was more so they were trying to play isolation. I think a lot of it had to do with two things real quick. Two things. One, the Orlando was giving them hell. Two, the Celtics have lost the ability to function as an offensive unit at an extremely high level without Jason Tatum on the floor. They have shifted gears and shifted focus to the offense revolves around Jason Tatum, and players like Derek White, players like Drew Holiday, who we've seen were so effective and efficient at. You never saw Derek White make a bad play, right? He never made a bonehead play. I saw about 4 of them tonight, and I could probably count more and more this game. So for me, right, I look at a game like tonight, and it's just this team doesn't know how to function offensively at an extremely high level if number 0 is not walking through that tunnel suited up for the game, I think.
Yeah, you said it, what I was saying, but in layman's terms, I think that it's a way of looking at it. I think that being dependent on a all-star like Jason Tatum is something that you see lower caliber teams do. And when you have a team full of talent, you need to be able to disperse it evenly throughout, and that's how you maintain those games where we're having a different player on the player spotlight repeatedly. We're not just seeing Jalen Brown or Jason Tatum up on the top of our screen. We're seeing Kristaps Porzingis. We're seeing Derek White and Drew Holiday start to get worked in there, and it's just the functionality of being able to have Jason Tatum being that facilitator and that primary focus for the Celtics. You need to be able to show that you have more than just one weapon.
Well, let's disclaim this first of all. Punching the Celtics in the throat is not an actual game plan, as Goga Batadze showed tonight, getting ejected by nearly punching Kristaps in the throat. But poking fun just there, the whole turnover thing tonight was very frustrating for the Celtics, considering they forced 20 turnovers on the other side of the ball.
Right.
With the Orlando Met, early on, it seemed like, oh, nice. The Celtics, they're just forcing turnovers all over the place. They're getting after it in transition, scoring off of turnovers, getting inside the paint. 24 points in the paint in the first quarter for the Celtics, yet for the rest of the game, they only scored 26 points in the paint, if I'm not mistaken. They had 50 for the entirety of the game. So early on for the Celtics, it seemed like, oh, this is going to be a nice lockdown defensive performance where they force those turnovers, get in transition, score in the paint, and just go all out in that category. Yet on the other side of the ball, that's exactly what the Orlando Magic were doing to the Boston Celtics progressively in this game as it went on, because at one point it seemed like, oh, we're winning the turnover margin. Here we go. We're winning the points off turnovers. And the away broadcast and even the home broadcast, they're both highlighting that. Yet in the end, Orlando has 20 turnovers, and you look at the Celtics, 18 turnovers for the night and only 13 team assists, and that 100% shows the Celtics' inability to play without Jason Tatum this season. And it feels like, for some reason, although they won the title last year, the Celtics won the title last year, this season almost feels like some guys, when Jason Tatum isn't out on the floor, they don't really understand their role as they did last year or understand it in its entirety, because of course the roles do shift around when your most important player is off the floor, and his Jason Tatum is the focal point of the offense and everything is just revolving around Tatum constantly. We kind of look at it and go, okay, when he's off the floor, whose role is it to play make? Whose role is it to be the primary guy on the floor? And typically that can be Jalen Brown. We've seen Pritchard be that guy this year. Yet tonight we saw Derek White was actually more so that guy than Peyton Pritchard was at various moments of this game. And it feels like it's all flipped around for the Celtics when Jason Tatum just exits the floor. We've seen this
Right.
even in games when he's playing, where Jason Tatum against the Chicago Bulls the other night exits the floor in the early fourth quarter. The Celtics don't score at all. They can't get any stops. So the Chicago Bulls start running ahead of the Celtics. And that's what's really confusing about this team this year, is that it didn't feel like it was that way at all last year. It felt like a more team effort, a collective effort from everybody scoring the basketball and being a part of the offense. And this year, it's not as if the Celtics aren't playing a team oriented style of basketball, because they are still one of the better team oriented teams in the entire league in terms of being unselfish. And other coaches, of course, rave about it with the Boston Celtics and other analysts from around the league. When the Boston Celtics come through their arena or they visit Boston, they always harp on that specific statement of the Boston Celtics are so unselfish, and that is what ultimately makes them such a great team. Yet there are occasions in which we see tonight and when Jason Tatum exits the floor where it does feel like, oh, this team, they don't really know how to play as a complete unit offensively. And there are so many reasons to that. Number one being Jason Tatum is off the floor. It doesn't seem like the functionality is all there. But number two, it almost does feel like the emotions part of it, where, yes, we won last season, we know what to do, yet the team isn't actually putting an emphasis on what the team needs to do in order to actually rack up those assists, rack up those open 3-point shots, because that is what we want to see out of this Boston Celtics team. I thought we saw it down the stretch in this game, as we highlighted earlier, where, oh, yeah, we're down 10 with 6 minutes left, or we're down 10 with 3 minutes left. Here comes the Boston Celtics. Yet, when the avalanche was happening on top of the Celtics, when they were being outscored by 19 points in the second half, it didn't feel like the Celtics were playing like that whatsoever, playing like a team. They were playing more Oh, Jaylen Brown, you take the ball, your turn. Oh, Peyton Pritchard, your turn. Oh, Derek White, your turn. Oh, Porzingis, you get an opportunity here. And that can't be a your turn, my turn type of thing as the season
Right.
goes on, because we talk about building those good habits as a basketball team. Jason Tatum, I don't want to say he's super durable as a player, and knock on wood for Jason Tatum's health here, but it's not always guaranteed you're going to have Jason Tatum every single night, even in the playoffs. He could come down with what we saw, remember, in game 7 in 2023. That was at the end of the playoff run, but he had an ankle injury. If we win that game 7, what if he's not available for the NBA Finals? The team has to find a way to play without him, and ultimately, in a night like tonight against the Orlando Magic, who are playing super hard, Jalen Suggs is hounding everybody. The Magic just have versatile wings across the board. You can easily see why the Orlando Magic are not struggling mightily without Boncaro and Franz Wagner. They have versatile wings all over the place. Their guards play super hard. They're really an admirable team right now, because it seems like they're a team that should just roll over without their two best players, and even losing Mo Wagner last game. Yet that is not happening in any sense whatsoever. Against a team like that, that's when good habits can be formed for the Celtics. And tonight, it really felt like it was going the other way for the Boston Celtics, where they're actually forming more bad habits than good ones. And it certainly indicates itself in the number of 13 team assists to 18 team turnovers. And meanwhile, you forced 20 turnovers on the other side of the ball. Great performance there, but you didn't take advantage of it because you allowed it to happen to yourself.
I mean, it is a very weird dynamic, and I don't know when it shifted. Quite frankly, I think it shifted in the playoffs last year, where Tatum really was the focal point. I mean, the ball. I mean, really, it's a little Luka-esque now, right? Not obviously not to that, it's not just dribble, screen, right? But in the sense where the offense revolves around Tatum now, like truly. I mean, it is Tatum operates how the offense is played for about 75% of the game, right? There is still a heavy portion, maybe 65. There's still a heavy portion of the game where it's not, but a lot of the game is, okay, Tatum, you drive, you kick the ball out so the ball can get swung and the defenders will help, or a lot of it is a high pick and roll so Tatum can get downhill. I mean, it really is a lot of Jason Tatum within the functionality of the offense. I think let's highlight it. It's been highlighted. We have multiple videos, I want to say, on our YouTube channel where we talk about it. Hey, go check those out if you haven't. Little self-plug right there. But, it's worth addressing. No doubt about it.
And let's add this too. You talk about the pick and roll. Was that not working early on with Luke Cornett? And Brian Scalabrine even pointed out, keep going to that, keep going to that. Well, Luke Cornett played 20 minutes, only took 4 shots, was 2 of 4 or 5 rebounds. Felt like he could have been more involved on the offensive side of the floor, especially when considering the bigs the Orlando Magic had out there. Don't want to undersell their bigs whatsoever. Wendell Carter and Goga Batadze, they're good bigs, but this is also a matchup where we look at Cornette and Queta the entire year. Not necessarily talking on Queta right now, but more so Cornette.
Right.
When you have the matchup of another team that does not have perimeter-oriented bigs, that is when you can really insert a Cornette. That is when you can really insert a Queta. And that's when Porzingis theoretically should be taking over, because not only can he score on the interior, he can score from the perimeter as well. And you can start mismatching all of these different matchups with Jaylen Brown. Of course, Jason Tatum isn't in the lineup, but of course he would be a huge one in that aspect if he were there tonight. But that's when you can really switch up another team and attack them and take away what they want to do to you. In the Celtics tonight, felt like from the game plan perspective, couldn't quite get that going at all. Couldn't get it going.
Well, it poses the question, does this team have an identity with Jason Tatum off the floor? Again, right? It's a question. Not making a statement, not saying they don't, not saying they do. I would lean right now to not really having one. I haven't seen much evidence that supports they kind of know what they're doing out there without Tatum. But it's definitely a topic of conversation, right? It's something that you're going to have to highlight. It's something that we're going to have to talk about more moving forward. It's something that I think Boston themselves within a game planning situation need to look at because they've been pretty bad at times when JT's not out there. I will say, as an avid JT's top 3 supporter, it's a hell of an MVP narrative. I mean, I would rather win basketball games, and I think Tatum would too, than Tatum win MVP. But I mean, it's up there, it's out there. I mean, you saw it tonight. You saw what he did Saturday night. and then you follow it up with him not being here and what just happened and transpired, it might add some fuel to that MVP fire, guys. But moving forward here, as we almost reach our time, but we have to talk about this before we even think about reaching our time, because in 2 days we play on Christmas. Now, I do want to say this in regards of Christmas and our own show. It's up in the air. We don't know. It's a holiday. We have to, get within the guys and the team, within our own team, to figure that out. We'll keep you updated on our social medias, especially Instagram and X. You'll have all the news there, guys. But we do play Philly at 5:00 at the TD Garden. It's an interesting one because I think it's a game that the NBA expected to be like a primetime matchup. And really, I think it's the game that most people are going to be kind of like for. Yeah, which is a shame because it got that 5:00 slot, and really that 5:00 slot is on Christmas in the NBA, kind of the primetime game. But again, what are your guys' expectations? It is still a regular season game. It counts for your record. It's at home against a rival. So what are you guys looking for?
I'm looking forward to seeing what the 76ers can put out on the court. I know they've been dealing with a ton of injuries this season. I know that a lot of their core players that we haven't even been introduced to yet. I haven't seen. I just became a NBA League Pass owner, so I haven't even seen Jared McCain out on a basketball court yet.
I know,
and that's going to be that's going to be a key point that I wanted to see. But I think this is going to be the prime rivalry that we're used to. But when I say that, that means that the Celtics are going to win because
they better win.
We've seen too much of the 76ers in the years past, and it hasn't seemed that things have changed for them. That obviously they've made a couple of acquisitions. You look at Paul George and you look at their bench and their depth, but it's something that the Celtics bench players need to be able to show up for. I think that Jason Tatum being out on the court is obviously going to do numbers for the Boston Celtics, especially during a primetime slot. I'm expecting a big performance out of him. And one thing just to go back really quickly, I think that the Celtics could have not been able to game plan very well because Jason Tatum was ruled out of the game only 10 minutes before. So maybe they did have a game plan drawn up for
technically at halftime.
Technically at halftime.
The weird.
But I think maybe the Celtics had intentions of Jason Tatum playing tonight, and they had to basically clear the entire whiteboard before the game when he said that I can't play.
Right.
And that it could play a key factor, but I think we're going to see this be a wake-up call and an opportunity for the Celtics to really put that respect back on their name and kind of strike that fear into the national audience.
Well, good news for people watching the NBA on Christmas. Joel Embiid did play tonight, or will play tonight, or he already played most likely during our game.
You never know.
You're like, what he was available on the injury report. So
yeah, he played. He played tonight.
He did play tonight.
He got ejected tonight.
No, that was Drummond.
Okay, so
Drummond got ejected.
No, Embiid got ejected too.
Drummond got ejected too.
So they ejected their entire big man rotation. Like, get out.
Well, Drummond got unejected. He got ejected on a play that was challenged. And then because they won the challenge, the ejection didn't count, so he got to come back in the game. I don't know. It was weird.
He literally had to put his jersey back on when he was coming out of the tunnel.
Oh, that's odd. But Paul George should be playing as well. So we should see the Sixers' two superstars on Christmas against the Boston Celtics, which means the Celtics, unlike tonight, will be playing the Sixers' two best players. Tonight, they did not play the Magic's two best players, still lost this game. And we know the Sixers, for all the struggles they've had this season, they'll come up to Boston, they'll play hard, they'll play in the spotlight, and the Celtics cannot just think, oh, we're going to roll over this team, because guess what? We've already done this twice this week where we're thinking, oh, All right, the Bulls, we're going to roll over them at home. All right, the Magic, no Wagner, no Bonquer, we're going to roll over them in Orlando before going back home to Christmas. Didn't happen. So,
Right.
Philadelphia 76ers, if they lose that game, I think there's going to be some emphasis put on the Boston Celtics from the national media because, number one, they'll be playing on ABC/ESPN. But number two, it'll highlight, Boston Celtics. Look, they're 1-3 in their last 4 games, and people will start talking about them, especially after what would be an embarrassing loss to the Philadelphia 76ers. So this is a crucial game for the Boston Celtics on Christmas. But I have something crucial to bring up here because I'm all of a sudden going to make this a tradition on this show. Because if anybody
I
watched
was
our
waiting for it.
December 23rd show last year, I think it was on the same exact date. So this is
It
1
was.
year ago today when we absolutely throttled the Los Angeles Clippers. We came on here and there was a
It was
Kita
way
cookie.
happier. It was way happier.
Yes, way happier than
It
the
was
rest of the show tonight. But we're bringing some holiday cheer, some holiday joy to the show tonight because otherwise this loss really doesn't present a lot of it for us. But last year we had the Kita cookie. This year, here we go, folks.
Oh, I'm excited.
We have the Drew Peterson cookie or the Marcus Morris cookie, no matter
where
how you want to look at it.
Malcolm
Maybe
Brogdon.
13
Where's
in Boston
Justin when
Celtics
you need it?
history. Here we go.
Delonte
we
West?
go.
Wasn't he 13?
Oh yeah, the Delonte West cookie.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be that. Look
I
at
have
that.
I have another cookie to show here after this one. So there's the
that's
Drew
my
Peterson cookie. Had to
Malcolm
give shouts to Drew Peterson this year because man, he has been phenomenal in the G League. He came up and played for the Celtics a couple minutes this month and really made a name for himself in Celtics Nation. But this other cookie I think is going to hit a little more home here on this program. We have a CTW cookie.
Oh,
This one is sick.
Look at that.
Wow.
There it is. The cheers. Look at that.
Yeah, there we go. The CTW
Wow.
cookie.
We're gonna need to frame that thing.
Oh yeah, I mean, this one can't be eaten. It's like I don't. It's bad luck to eat our own program
I
here.
mean, how did you even manage to get the font down?
I know, right? I excel at these things. Apparently, I guess that's just what needs to happen.
Look
but
at that. Wow. That's awesome.
CTW cookie, some holiday cheer here.
The only
And
time
those are my Celtics. Well, I guess I have another cookie here. It's not as amazing. It's just a big clover. If I could get this thing open here. And I don't know. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, does it even look like a clover? Here we go.
yeah, that's
I'll
a
take it.
clover.
I'll take it.
That's a clover. The stem's a little sad, but that's a clover.
Yeah. Well, you got to do what you got to do with.
Yeah, it's
With,
gonna get eaten,
with dough.
Oh,
It's,
that's awesome. So you made those from dough?
Well,
and
I
everything?
gotta give shout out. My family every year, what we do gingerbread making contests, and we also make cookies like this every year. Like my stepsister, she's a huge Seattle Storm fan, and
Okay.
she had I could have brought that one on camera too. She made a Seattle Storm one, and that one looked amazing as well. It had the lightning bolt and even the normal logo. So we do that every single year. But I guess I don't know. I have a couple more. I guess this is the other one I should show here because I gave her shouts this earlier this month. If I can get this container open. Oh my god. Here we go. So went to Notre Dame, UConn earlier this month, right?
Is it a page?
Yep.
Oh no. This is
Oh,
better
you
than
got
Paige
that.
Becker's.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I made a Hannah Hidalgo cookie.
Oh,
Are you kidding me?
That might be your best one.
I know it's.
Oh, with the little cursive.
Yeah, you got the
font
little
in
cursive
there?
on there.
I guess I have to bring out the other one too. That's here we go. I have one more that I'll show here. There's one more Jersey one, but it's not Celtics, it's not Irish, it's not anything. It's just because these cookies every year, you make cookies, you forget, they expand in the oven. All right, folks, that's just a holiday tidbit here. Cookies expand in the oven. So if you're trying to make Jersey shapes, just know that it'll expand in the oven. So this came out a little fatter, right? A little fatter.
It's a
And
soldier cookie.
no offense to this man in NBA history, but Oliver Miller, kind of an overweight player. And for the history of myself here, my dad would joke because in school when I played basketball, I was heftier, and I also had this huge baggy jersey that I wore because school hands out jerseys. They're all
You're right. You don't
baggy,
get the
they're not the
pick,
right size. And he's like, "You look like Oliver Miller out there." So I have an Oliver Miller cookie here. Toronto Raptors, Oliver Miller.
That is hilarious.
Could have been Del Curry, I guess, too.
That might be my favorite one.
But there you go. I guess I have my own. I had my own cookie too. I guess one more. It's my own cookie. Here we go. My own school.
Okay.
School
Little
jersey.
shouts, little self shouts right there. I like that.
Hometown.
I like that. I like that.
Okay.
Well, I expect in a year from today to be back on here with a whole new batch of cookies. Well, here's the question: you eat these, right?
Honestly, I don't know. Some of them are too good to eat.
Okay,
I don't think I
can
ate some of the cookies last year. Like I had that basketball cookie I had on the program last year. I think I ate that one. The Kata cookie, I'm not gonna lie, it could still be somewhere.
That's crazy.
I don't remember throwing it out. I don't remember eating it. I don't remember doing
crazy.
anything with it. Now, it was in a room that was completely renovated, but at the same time, I don't remember anything that happened with the Kata cookie. But I now wish, if we come on here on Christmas or we come after Christmas, I got a bunch of icing on my hands now. If we come on here after Christmas, we got to bring up a picture of last year's Kata cookie.
Yeah. We'll have.
We definitely have pictures of it. Definitely have pictures, but yeah, I thought to go a different direction this year because Kata cookie, that was last year's thing. Drew Peterson cookie, will make it this year's thing. And next year, maybe JD Davison. I don't know.
We gotta wait and see. Maybe
we could have done a Cornet cookie.
A Walsh cookie.
A Walsh cookie.
A Walsh cookie.
That doesn't sound as good.
That doesn't. A Cornet cookie might sound the best, but
Cornet cookie. Now that it's said, Cornet cookie, you might have to
Cornet
make a
cookie.
special
Put that
one
on.
for
Yeah, put that on the
Christmas here.
docket. But
yeah,
guys, thank you so much.
Yearly tradition, CTW here.
Yes. And again, regards for Christmas. We don't know yet. We don't have any answers. We will keep you updated. Honestly, as soon as we know, we will have them. Probably by tomorrow, we'll get them out. And I admire the cookie. That is a bomb. That's gotta be my favorite cookie.
See, I want to put it like right here. Oh wait. Here we go. Bottom of the screen.
That's an A+ A+ on all the cookies. But
there we go.
Thank you guys so much for joining in, watching us tonight, guys. The Celtics, they fell short of the win tonight on the road without Jason Tatum. 108-104 was their final score from Orlando. The Celtics will be back in action at 5:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on none other than Christmas Day, December 25th. You can catch that game on ABC or NBC Sports Boston. Unfortunately, I can't tell you guys to come right back here quite yet. But again, follow us on Instagram to stay up to date with all of our announcements regarding and post-game shows. Guys, before we close off the show, I just want to say I hope everybody watching, whenever it is, has a safe and happy holidays from everybody here at Celtics Talk Weekly. We hope you guys have a great time spending it with your family, your friends, whoever it might be. We hope that you guys have a blessed holidays. Seriously, we appreciate all the support you've been giving us and continue to give us. So we know that we are thankful, even though it's not Thanksgiving, for everybody here who is joining and watching us here, guys. So until next time, whenever we see you, either Wednesday or Friday, big shouts on the cookie. I'm going to cue this intro, but I'm not happy, or the outro rather. I'm not happy that it's going to have to play off a loss. But guys, as always, we thank you so much.
Is a gift that keeps on giving.
Guys, until next time, big shouts on the cookie. And as always, go Celtics.